And we're live. Welcome back, everybody, to a new episode of the Wheelie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Atoll, and I'm joined again by Electrek Seth Weintraub. How's it going, Seth?
I'm good.
Awesome. And we've got a great episode of the Wheelie Podcast for you guys this week. Today, it's actually sponsored by Wolfbox, a leading brand in the automotive electronics market, currently offering 30% off its new Level 2 EV charger on its Amazon store for a limited time. We're going to have more on that soon, though. But first, we've got a pile of interesting stories to cover, all of the biggest e bike and other two wheeled e thing stories in the last week or so. That includes everything from Segway's new futuristic electric bikes. We've got a story about the National Renewable Energy Lab that has kicked e bikes out of the buildings for fire hazards. We're looking at an interesting study that compared who breaks traffic laws more, cars or bikes. Kind of a surprising result there. Yamaha announced a new battery swapping initiative for electric bikes. And we're going to be looking at a few other stories as well, including an electric snowboard, which I'm quite excited to hear about. But where are we starting this week, Seth?
All right. Segway unveils futuristic new electric bike and arguably electric motorcycle.
Yeah, this one's really interesting to me because Segway has really sort of reinvented itself and has pushed really hard into the e-bike and the light e-moto space. It started with those sort of knockoff Sarons, but now they're doing their own in-house e-bikes, it looks like. They've got some strange names. One of them is called the Zafari. It's like Safari with an X, and the other is called the Zyber. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it. Again, like cyber, but with an X. We'll start with the Zafari, if I'm saying that correctly. And that one really is more of like a sort of classical electric mountain bike. Now it's kind of futuristic looking. It doesn't look like what we're used to seeing. It's very angular. It's almost, I hate that I'm saying this, but kind of cyber trucky in like design, a lot of flat panels kind of thing. But for an electric bike, it's got dual suspension. It uses bike components. It looks like more or less what you'd expect out of sort of a trail bike kind of situation. Now, it's still got a fairly typical electric bike battery, though it is quite large at something over 900 watt hours. So that's great to see, especially on a bike that people are presumably going to be taking, deep into trails, really riding off road. Obviously, great to have that extra power. It's also got 3-inch tires, which is really interesting. You rarely see tires that big on electric mountain bikes. It's kind of I like to call it a balloon tire. It's somewhere between a normal mountain bike tire and a true like 4-inch fat tire.
I know
But
you're a
to
big fan
me,
of the 3 inch.
oh yeah, I think it's great. Like it's
Yeah.
best of both worlds. Obviously, you have the downside of both worlds as well. But I love 3-inch tires, so it's great to see it. And we almost never see them in this large diameter
Yep.
size like on a mountain bike. So kind of a neat thing there. But if the Zafari is more like traditional bike, then the Zyber is the opposite. It is far from traditional in any sense of the word. And while technically considered an electric bike, I think that you're kind of going out on a limb there. Like, yes, it has pedals, but it looks more like an electric motorcycle. Anybody looking at it is going to say that's a motorcycle. It's obviously going to be bigger, more massive. Interestingly, it has the option for 2 batteries as well. So what we're looking at here, it just has one of the 1.4 kilowatt hour batteries installed, but it's got space there if you want to put in a second. You can get 2.8 kilowatt hours of battery capacity. Obviously, range is going to vary. I think they say it's something like 90 miles or something. I don't think anyone's really going to
90
see that
miles
kind of range. Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things
on a
where
1.4 kilowatt hour battery.
no, that's with two of them. I think they
Oh,
say you'll get
okay.
like
I'll
90
laugh at the
miles.
2.8 kilowatt hour battery.
Yeah,
That's also kind of
still,
crazy.
yeah. If you're, I think that's using the vestigial pedals that they've included there. I
Oh, are
don't think
those
anyone's.
pedals on there?
Yeah, yeah, those are. They have them flat, so it's kind of hard to
Uh,
see because they take away from the motorcycleness of it.
right.
But legally they're there. Now, Segway didn't give us a lot of tech specs here, including things like top speed. What they did say is that the Zyber, the motorcycle one, has a 0 to 20 mile per hour acceleration time of 2.5 seconds. So we know it goes at least 20 miles an hour, but I can't tell you if this is like, a class two e-bike or a class three or an out of class, meaning it would go, over 28 miles per hour. So until Segway wants to share some of those tech specs with us, it's going to be hard for us to really classify these bikes. The other important thing we don't have yet is pricing information. So we're really looking at sort of like power, motor, battery, and basic bike design here is about all we can suss out at this point. What do you think of what we at least can see so far, Seth?
So I really like the look of both of these. I think perhaps I mean, so this one right here that we're looking at is looks kind of like a commuter bike. Is that the same as the or
The
are there three
Zyber?
bikes? Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's two bikes. So the two that actually have the guy on them, that's
Uh-huh.
the Zafari.
Uh-huh.
And that one, it appears at least exists in some form. Some prototype exists.
Yeah,
The
person's
other
on it.
one, that's like just renders at this point.
CGI, yeah. So, I like all of these. I like that Segway's doing it because they are all over the place. They're at Best Buy, they're, and Walmarts and wherever people go. So that's a good thing. They look great. I actually really like the motorcycle one. But there's so many unanswered questions there. Obviously, the range of 90 miles on a 2.8 kilowatt hour battery sounds more like a pedal bike if you know, if you're pedaling. I don't know how you get that range. Well, I mean, I guess if it goes top speed is 20 miles per hour, then maybe that's how you get that range. Um, so a lot of questions still. They didn't say the power of the output of the motor?
No, I don't think they shared that figure. I'm guessing it's going to be one of these situations where the number on the sticker is lower than real life, though.
Right. I mean, it looks significant. Like it looks like it could be, 3 kilowatt, 5 kilowatt, something like that, which would kind of put it up in Suron type of area, or I guess we should say Talaria these days. Um, I don't, like obviously that's going to be the specs are going to be important here. But I love the fact that they're doing this, like building their own, especially. I think these are great looking vehicles. They'll put more people on electric bikes. Um, but I just don't, like I would like to see these, in I would like to see a finished product before I get myself too excited because we've seen so many prototypes that never, you know, like came to light of day. Obviously there's a Saunders issue out there with the Metacycle, which is a different class of bike than this, but there's also things like Van Moof had a motorcycle kind of offering that never came to fruition. I feel like Bird had something as well. So like let's get this out and reviewable and make it happen. They look great. If the top speed on this is 20 miles per hour, this is kind of playing into the I would say the Super 73 world. Uh, you've got a motorcycle looking bike, but it is still a bike and it goes bike speeds. But I feel like there's an opportunity here. I guess 28 miles per hour would make it slightly better, but I don't know. If it's over 28 miles per hour, like first of all, why have pedals on it? And second of all, like where is this going to be legal? They're certainly not going to homologate it, I would imagine.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't think it's going to cut out at 20. For one thing, if they're giving the 0 to 20 mile an hour acceleration and it's as good as 2.5 seconds, that's some serious power. And you would like just run into that power wall and immediately it cuts out. I
Right.
don't know. That's generally not anyone's style. So I could see, maybe it gets up to 28, but oftentimes you have that sort of power start to curtail as you reach the top speed or the electronically limited top speed. And so it makes more sense to me they give a lower number for the acceleration figure.
Yeah, and I feel like Segway has probably like lawyers and people who are telling them like, hey, you can't just have a 50-mile-per-hour bike sold at Best Buy, people are going to die on these things, and you're going to be in trouble. So I feel like there's a pretty big chance that these are not going to be motorcycle type speeds, um, unless you like that Saronster guy uh, opens up bikes and upgrades them, and I guess this one would be a ripe for that. But still, lots of questions here. I would say I don't know if I'd bet the farm on this one being a motorcycle type of thing. Shall we move on to NREL? Kicks e-bikes out due to battery fears. Could it do better?
Yeah, so this is another battery fire related story. In this case, there was no specific fire, but the National Renewable Energy Laboratory in Colorado made a decision that they were not going to allow e bikes or e scooters or any form of micromobility into their buildings anymore. So anyone who rides their e bike to work, you got to find somewhere to stick it outside, basically. I guess the issue is that they don't want people either charging or storing the bikes inside due to fire concerns. Uh, there was some discussion of, that there are UL listed bikes, but basically it sounds like they didn't want to get into the hassle of like having to police who had, proper UL certification and who didn't. And so they just made this sort of blanket ban. Now that I'm looking at it, it looks like the fire marshal who posted it on LinkedIn may have taken his post down because we had embedded it, which
Yeah,
is unfortunate because he had a picture in there, which I think he thought was a good thing to include. It was their solution, which was, he said, to install bike racks and outdoor charging stations. But it was a picture of like a sad little three stall bike rack and like a rusty electrical outlet on the side of a brick building. Like it was not a great looking piece of infrastructure for someone who's going to lock up and charge their multi-thousand-dollar electric bike.
yeah,
So in this case, it seems so ironic that an outfit that should be so gung ho about renewable energy, alternative transportation, every green buzzword you can find should be part of their ethos, and yet to me this seems like a very heavy-handed ban. Now I don't want to downplay the impact of electric bike fires. It's not that this is a boogeyman. They do exist, and people have died here. It is a lethal problem. The issue, though, is that for the most part, these are really being, these few cases are being picked up in the media because it's a very clicky headline, e-bike catches fire in apartment kind of thing. But the reality is that every day millions of e-bikes are charged successfully without issues. And so I don't think that these blanket bans where they say no bikes allowed in the building is the way to go here. For one, it's so easy to create a system where like you just get a sort of a parking sticker if you can show that your bike has a UL label on it. Like that's not that hard. Secondly, I feel like if you want to make a blanket ban, it should be against charging in buildings and not necessarily against just storing. One of the biggest reasons people don't like the idea of taking their e-bike somewhere is that it's expensive and they don't want to park it outside where it can be stolen. So just parking it in your office behind your desk is very common. I see that all the time where people just put their bike, even their fancy road bike that costs $4,000 or $5,000, and just put it behind their chair at work. And so to me, that's unfortunate that people are being forced to keep these bikes outside when they're worried about them getting stolen or exposed to the weather, that sort of thing. Like I said, I don't want to downplay fire risks here. It is a real thing, but it just seems a bit heavy-handed. I don't know. Am I being too cavalier? What do you think, so?
yeah. I mean, so it sounds like this story may have ruffled some feathers. I know we had a commenter, Noel Merkett, who says he works at or she, I don't know, is Noel a guy or girl? Anyway, that person says that they are employee at NREL for over a decade, and of course, this story is sensationalized. Well, it's not really, because this was something that was said. If that policy has been reversed um, since the story came out, then maybe that's something to consider. We should probably follow up since the fire marshal guy deleted his LinkedIn post. But that person says I bike commute because parking is disincentivized. It's faster for me to get to work on a bike than park in the parking garage and walk 5-10 minutes to my building. I think that's great. That's great. Safety is a big deal at NREL. We should also say that we're big fans of NREL. That's a lot of cool stuff comes out of there. This isn't the only thing that they take really defensive positions on when it comes to safety. They have dozens of bike lockers available outdoors. Where is this, by the way? Is it in a warm area?
It's in Colorado. I'm not sure
Okay.
if it's high elevation or what.
Yeah. They have dozens of bike lockers. They have bike repair stations. Their offices aren't that big, and almost nobody keeps bikes in their offices due to the abundant parking. Rather than tell people no e-bikes, they installed outlets outdoors next to the bike racks just so people could charge their bikes at work. So these are all kind of excuses, but like the fire marshal did say no e-bikes. So like the story, still stands as written previously. These things are all good things. I think hopefully there's they're taking a more nuanced approach that we kind of like what we suggested and said, like if you want to bring a bike inside, it's got to have these certain things. It's got to have a ISO. What is it? The safety thing again?
Um, UL
Yeah,
2849. I forget the numbers. There's
yeah,
one for bikes and one for batteries.
right. So UL listed bike or battery or both or one or the anyway. Um, all these things that are pretty easy to enforce, and if you're in the NREL, it's not like you're new to technology or electronics or anything. So theoretically, you should have at least, or your manager, or somebody's going to have some knowledge of this stuff. So I think hopefully what's happening is they are taking a more nuanced approach, which was our suggestion. It is great that they have a lot of outdoor parking and charging and repair facilities. So that's all good stuff. Hopefully, us publicizing this policy not only gets the NREL to kind of be more nuanced about their approach to e-mobility, but also, other types of campuses are looking at this and saying, oh, maybe we should be a little bit more nuanced with our approach here instead of just putting a blanket ban out, which of course is the easiest thing to do. Like a fire marshal guy is going to be like, hey, do I want to, write out different policies? Lawyers are going to be like, we don't want to have to deal with anything, just nothing. It's the easiest thing to do, but like, let's try to be a little bit more nuanced about this. And there are things like easy, you know, tiers to say, hey, as long as the batteries UL certified or the bike is UL certified, those are pretty good things. So that's kind of my take there.
Definitely. I think that's fair.
All right, let's move on here. Next, we have cars are bikes. Surprising results of a study reveal who breaks more road laws. And I know everybody's uncle on Facebook is going to be really excited to hear about this.
Yeah, definitely. So, you know how you see that bike riding through a stop sign, you're like, all those dang cyclists never obey traffic laws. Well, it turns out that most of them do. At least that's what this study found, and it's not the only one to find this result. This particular one is a study that the Danish government contracted with a consulting firm who used traffic cameras to study, I think it was 27 or 28,000 cyclists throughout their commutes. And what they found was that in areas or in cities where there was good cycling infrastructure, cyclists ended up, I guess, breaking the law or having traffic infractions approximately 5% of the time. In more rural areas or cities that didn't have good cycling infrastructure, they found that the traffic violations among cyclists went up to about 14%. If you compare that to in the same areas, studies of car traffic violations, they found that cars violated traffic law something like two-thirds of the time, or about 67% of the time.
Jeez.
Yeah, and so like it's not even close. And so if you read through the study, what's interesting is the researchers They try to suggest reasons for why this might be, especially because it runs so counterintuitive to what most people think would be the result. And what they explain is that it likely comes down to a visibility issue. That when you see a cyclist, riding on the sidewalk or riding through a red light or breaking traffic laws in any way, it's very visible. Like it sticks out, and you're like, that guy is doing something wrong. But the number of daily traffic violations committed by cars, like it's just so commonplace that it doesn't even stick out in people's minds anymore. Like, someone can be doing 40 miles an hour in a 30 and it just looks normal. Or someone, slows down but doesn't stop at a stop sign. Like it just doesn't look that out of place. And so all of these are traffic violations. It's just when you see a cyclist slow down at a stop sign instead of stopping, people get irrationally angry about it. And so the fact of the matter is that not only is scofflaw cyclists not this endemic problem that a lot of people seem to think that it is, but the results of the study also sort of underline the importance of having proper cycling infrastructure. Basically, having true bike paths, bike lanes that aren't just painted on the side of the road. Because the study found that cyclists were 3 times as likely to break traffic law if they didn't have their own place to cycle, if they were basically forced to ride in the street. Interestingly, it found that the single largest traffic violation in those cases was riding on the sidewalk. So basically, it was cyclists trying to get away from the street so that they're not riding with cars. And I think that is really the take home message here. Not just that by and large cyclists are not breaking the law en masse, but that to encourage even better traffic law awareness and um, compliance, that we should be trying to install more traffic infrastructure, that it would serve everybody, even drivers, by installing better cycling lanes, better bike paths, better multi-use paths. And that just seems to be, part of the greater good, something that everyone can appreciate. I don't know, am I like looking at the world through rose tinted glasses here, Seth?
Well, I, I definitely agree with the high level premise that uh, building safe bike infrastructure is going to create less incentive for bike riders to break the law. I think, as the top commenter put, like it's worth mentioning that some cyclists break traffic laws due to safety concerns. Intersections that are only designed for cars are one of the most dangerous places for cyclists. So many ride through a red light if traffic is clear to get out of the area. I don't want to out myself, but I find myself, running stop signs because I don't want to be in an intersection and I just want to like kind of get out of there, make a right. There's also an energy component. Like I don't want to have to stop all the way, then start up all the way. I just want to keep moving. But I think you know I I think building infrastructure is absolutely going to lower the amount of um, law breaking that cyclists do. And like you said, it's not even close. Even with the infrastructure that's in Denmark, I think the cars are still going to make a ton of uh, problematic decisions for bikers, and so it's still a concern, but your wife on this protected roadway here, like cars can't really. I mean, sure they could like run through those poles or something, but for the most part, being protected means that you don't have to think about. Um, Even if so, the big complaint from car drivers is like, hey, the bikers are breaking the laws and they're going through a red light, and basically, I want to go through a red light too, but it's the if you're not even in the same roadway as a biker, I think you even care less about them breaking laws if they are breaking laws, and theoretically they're going to be breaking fewer laws. So, yeah. So there's a lot of nuance to this, but I think the big takeaway is like having infrastructure is going to reduce the amount of law breaking on both sides and the impact of those breaking the laws. So, that's my big thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what we should all sort of strive to achieve from this. And by we, I mean city planners.
Right. All right, let's do our quick sponsor read. Today's episode is sponsored by Wolfbox, a leading brand in the automotive electronics market with unwavering commitment to quality and durability for its customers around the world. The team at Wolfbox believes that driving oftentimes more than just a means of transportation, it can be an adventure through waiting to unfold, and the company wants to be your trusted companion during those journeys. Wolfbox sells a series of smart dash cams and other vehicle accessories, in addition to perfect fit floor mats through their partnership with 3W Liners. For EV drivers, Wolfbox currently offers a level 2 home charger with adjustable current, Wi Fi, Bluetooth, and plug in charge capabilities. Whether you prefer to connect your home via NEMO plug or hardwired directly to your existing system, Wolfbox's internal indoor outdoor EV charger is compatible with all J1772 plugs and empowers drivers to schedule and monitor their home charge session from anywhere using their smartphone. Save 30% off your Wolfbox Level 2 EV charger on the company's Amazon store for a limited time. And you can hit that link in the show notes. Learn more at wolfbox.com. A big thank you to Wolfbox for sponsoring. All right. Next up, we have Yamaha, and they're announcing a new battery swapping for electric bikes.
This one, it's called Any Ring. It's spelled ENY Ring, and it's Yamaha's own sort of in-house electric bike battery swapping system. As if we didn't have enough swappable battery standards, here's one more for us to put on the table here. And so Yamaha's is designed as a way that they can partner with other companies and incorporate these swappable batteries into bikes. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of tech specs here. I can't tell you how big the battery is, what voltage it is, that kind of stuff. They haven't released it. But what they have talked about is the idea of how this would work. They envision having battery swap stations around cities so that people could just roll up, pop out their depleted battery and put in a charged one and continue on their way. It's not a novel idea. Plenty of companies use this system. Perhaps the most famous is Gogoro, which I actually use on a daily basis. My electric scooter has swappable batteries, and about once a week I go by a swap station in my city and I get a new battery and put mine in there. I don't own the batteries. And that's the idea here, is that people wouldn't own the batteries, that they would be able to have a more affordable bike and they would just swap batteries. The interesting thing about this specific system is that Yamaha's already talking about what happens to these batteries once they get old. And what they're saying is that once the batteries get below 70% capacity compared to original, which is largely considered end of life for micromobility batteries, they're already saying that they're going to take these cells out and build like energy storage batteries. So for like on-site permanent energy installations, because these battery cells, even though they're not great for mobile storage anymore and for vehicles, they can still be used as energy storage devices. So it's interesting that they've got this built into the business plan to begin with as sort of a complete life cycle system for these cells, especially since a lot of these are using non-renewable resources. And so it is really important to consider how we're using these. The issue is that there's not a lot of specifics about how this system is going to be implemented. Yamaha's talking about working with partners, but we don't actually see any bike companies or any other partners hopping on board yet. So it's a cool idea. Obviously, it comes with the backing of a massive company. Like, if Yamaha wants to make bikes happen, they will, or like pianos or swimming pools, I think. Like they can make just about anything. So why not swappable batteries? But I don't see any concrete evidence that this has started or that it's anything more than like an idea yet. I want to believe, like I want to see them make swappable batteries for bikes happen, especially if that leads to some kind of standard that other companies sort of sign up for. The way there's probably a dozen or more scooter companies that have sort of signed on to GoGo's batteries and have started building scooters to fit their batteries. If that happens for bikes, that'd be awesome. And maybe this is what it takes. It takes some big name manufacturer to say, here's our standard, everyone choose this one. If that's what it takes, like cool, I'll hop on board. I'll use a Yamaha battery. So maybe that's what we can get out of this. But until until I see, real usage, real names of bike companies that are signed on, I don't know if I'm going to get too excited here. I've been burned before.
Yeah, I mean, if this is all that they're putting out, this is, pretty early stage, and I don't know why you would want to kind of hold back on your progress here, because, you want to be kind of a first mover and get other people to sign up. So, I don't know what the idea is here. Maybe they're trying to get some publicity and see if there's interest, and then move forward if there is interest. One thing I do like about the very little information we do have is that this is obviously shaped more like something that would work in e-bike space more than like, it would be kind of weird to put a go-go-row battery on an e-bike. It's just too square, and it fits the scooter um,
The form
plat
factor, yeah.
form factor a lot better. So like I get the need for something that would work on bikes, and Yamaha's obviously in that space, and it makes a lot of sense. So I like all of that. Like you said, it's a great thing. But I also wonder, like, would it be better to have something that was go-go-row compatible that would fit a bike form factor or something? It just seems like I don't know that we need two separate standards coming out. And man, it would be really nice if our government would come out and say, hey, let's make some standards here for bikes, and actually for power tools too. And like, here's what it has to do. It's got to be this voltage, this amperage, or whatever, this range of whatever, and then it's got to be this form factor. It's got to fit into this thing. I mean, from the power tools perspective, this is something I've been railing against for a long time. There's like 30 different standards for Greenworks and Cobalt and Skill, and like there's like 70. There's just so many different things, and a lot of them use the exact same OEM part and then put on a plastic piece that makes it not compatible with their
Yeah.
competitor. It's like almost like a competitive thing to make their batteries less competitive, which you would think, like, all right, maybe get into the battery business, like make a battery for your competitor that also works with yours, and then all of a sudden you have a another product. But these companies are in the you know for in this case the bike business. Their differentiators, their bike building. The same with power tools. Greenworks isn't a battery company; they're a power tool making company. So they want to make, that's their differentiator. So they don't want people just taking their batteries and going elsewhere with them. That's where the differentiation and the money comes from. So back to this thing, the Any Ring, you know, make it. Let's make it happen. This is very early stages. We'd love to see something like this. And if it has to be a different standard than Gogoro, then so be it. But eventually we're going to have a kind of like the NAC situation in car charging, where the best solution is going to win. And so we'll see what happens there, I guess.
Yeah, one day.
Yep. All right. This bike was specifically designed to bring transportation to low-income rural areas.
I really like this one. I'll tell you right now, it's not an electric bike, it's a pedal bike, but that's okay because we're all about alternative transportation. And this is just a really cool story. This is the Buffalo bike. It's been out for a little while now, but the whole idea is that this bike was designed for low income rural areas as basically like a very easy to use, easy to work on, kind of bulletproof bike. It was developed by the World Bicycle Relief. It's a program that sends these bikes out to places across Africa, across South America, to basically these rural villages where people don't have a way to get around. And so they empower people by giving them transportation and a bike that's strong enough to, load 100 pounds of water on the back of it, or, like run a small business off of it. And to me, what's really cool about this, in addition to just the fact that these are, changing people's lives, is looking at the bike itself and say, all right, so if their goal was to build a bike that's going to last a long time and be super simple, like what did they put in it? And so this is basically a very simple steel frame bike. There's no point in making it extra lightweight. and steel is just going to last longer. It's a single speed, so you don't have a derailleur or an internally geared hub or expensive finicky parts. There are no hand brakes. It's just a coaster brake in the back, which, if you're flying downhill at 30 miles an hour, is not going to be the safest method. But for
Wait,
most of these flat
it
areas,
it kind of looks like there's a break on this one. There's a cable that goes down, and then there's a
um, yeah,
maybe
that
not.
is strange. I'm not sure what that is because it doesn't have.
Maybe that's a enhanced version or something.
Yeah, or that's like the PNG is doing something weird. But yeah, it's just got a coaster brake there.
Okay.
That might actually be, I don't know, it's got like a reflector and a basket mount up there. But yeah, none of these seem to have any handbrakes on them. Um, no suspension, also. Again, like one more part that could break. And so it's just interesting to see like the parts that they cut out and the parts that they ruggedized to make sure these bikes are as long lasting as possible. The other cool thing, this is something that I feel like is missed with a lot of these charities is like, like there's criticism of some of these like shoe charities, right? That they come in and they dump like 20,000 shoes in an area in Africa and they like destroy the local economy and like all
Right.
the cobblers go out of business or whatever. So here they actually focus on empowering the community as well. So when they come in with all these free bikes, they also train a lot of the locals to be bike mechanics. So suddenly you've created this like second industry where there are people that live in the village and they're maintaining these bikes. So they're patching tires, they're fixing something that breaks, that sort of thing. So to me, this is just really interesting from multiple angles. And at the end of the day, it's like very simple. I think $165 was the price point for these. So they take donations. I made a donation myself. I donated one bike. So if someone wants to do that, they can. $165 sends somebody somewhere a bike that could just be like a life changing thing. And so myself as someone who gets around almost entirely on two wheels, I've really come to appreciate just the deep impact it has on someone to have that kind of freedom and mobility. And so this was like a no brainer to me, like just seeing people that don't have access to transportation getting these like bulletproof rugged bikes. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and I the front bent fork, is that considered suspension? I mean, I feel like that's why they bend those. Is that
So I think it's got something to do with the rake angle that when you actually put the axle in front of the point where the fork angles down to where it would impact the ground,
uh-huh.
it creates what's called, I think it's called trail if I'm not mistaken. Basically, it makes it more stable like a caster. That's why
Oh,
you
okay.
can like take your hands off when you're riding
Right.
um, because of there's some engineering in there that I'm not like totally sure of, but it's got something to
Okay.
do with putting that point out in front of the fork.
And so like just to go back a little bit, like I know Trek is big in this area. Like who actually builds these bikes? Like where are they built? Where are they
Yeah, it's a good question. I have to assume they're built probably in China or Taiwan just because that's where the industry is. And if your
Mhm.
goal is to reduce cost, then I can't imagine anywhere else. Though now that I say that, there has been a lot of expansion into countries like Vietnam and such, especially with all of the anti-dumping tariffs that have been applied to China in the last few years. So, but I'm sure it's somewhere in East Asia.
Yeah, and I guess it would be, if you're training people how to fix these things, maybe you could just send frames and wheels over, and they theoretically could build them locally. But this is obviously a really cool idea. It wouldn't be hard to motorize these as well, so like that's something to think about. Like you know, perhaps there's a opportunity for a not a Copenhagen wheel type of situation, but maybe if this is a $165 bike, maybe another $100 gets a small battery and a little motor on there. I don't know.
The
Maybe that's
Buffalo
not
Bike
necessary.
Pro.
Yeah, yeah, and the front brake, like this one kind of sort of looks like.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know why that one picture seems to have a cable. You're absolutely right.
I also noticed the kickstand on that. Is that the standard kickstand on all these? It looks like it is.
Yeah, it's that.
That's good for
I've
loading.
only seen that like in Asia and maybe once or twice in Europe. I've never seen those in the U.S. That really wide rear.
Yeah, usually
kickstand.
you see them on like bigger bikes. I guess cargo bikes have those kind of a lot,
Yeah,
but they're sometimes loaded up in the middle as well.
yeah, and like you can see in the pictures, a lot of people are using these to transport like big, 5 gallon, 10 gallon things of
Right.
water. So that
Yeah,
makes
and
sense
a
having that
side
kickstand.
kickstand's not going to help with that at all.
Yeah, that's the worst is when you have something heavy back there and you try to use that side kickstand.
Yeah, not going to happen. All right, moving on. Horwin makes a U.S. electric motorbike debut, but at a price.
Yeah, I've been following Horwin for several years. They started with these more like sort of classically styled, almost retro electric motorcycles. So it's interesting to see them really launch towards this futuristic design. If you've been following the electric light motorcycle or maxi scooter market, you can probably already tell what model this one is kind of imitating. To me, it looks
BMW?
um, exactly. Yeah, it looks a lot like the BMW CE04,
Yep.
which is interesting because it's also priced somewhere around the same price. Which, if you're a new Asian manufacturer trying to enter the U.S. market, like it's going to be tough to come in with BMW pricing at like
Yeah, I mean,
$17,000.
you want to go with a brand you know and love, and BMW is obviously not going to be gone in a year or two.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, I mean, Horwin has been around for several years. I don't know when they were founded. I've been following them since like 2018. So, they're not like a new startup or anything. But, obviously BMW is going to have their whole service network. They're going to have a rider community, basically everything you need. And so unless you just really, really like this design, which it's not a copy of BMW CEO4. It does have some unique things. Then I'm not sure how you're convincing someone to go with this. But I mean, they made a slick looking bike. They started with a slick looking bike to get the inspiration from, but they built something nice here. I'm not sure if we have an exact release date yet for this bike. I think they were talking about near the end of the year giving reservation holders test rides. So, this isn't going to be coming anytime soon. Don't expect it for like the 2024 riding season kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like, they're absolutely planning on bringing this to the US. It's not, a Europe only model like we've seen in the past from Horwin, where they, really started with a much larger European expansion before considering North America. So that excites me. And just the fact that we're seeing another electric maxi scooter kind of excites me. I mean, these things are fairly powerful. I think it was, let's see, 74 kilowatts. It's like 100 horsepower.
That's
That's,
crazy. That's like a
yeah,
car.
yeah, that's, I mean, some of the like flagship motorcycles, I think only Zero's top models have more power than that. And I think they're only slightly more, like 80 kilowatts.
And
So
is BMW's version, is that similar in horsepower?
I,
Maybe that's their justification for the higher
I
price.
think this is actually higher power, yeah, than BMW's version. Um,
And a 0
it's
to 60
also,
time of 2.8 seconds. That's how do you keep the
yeah,
front
I'll
wheel down
believe
on
that
it?
when I see it. I mean, yeah, like I've done the 0 to 60 on a live wire, and like that takes some serious power and some serious engineering. Like you can't just have you know some schmuck on a bolted together bike doing
Right.
that. So we'll see if that pans out. They do say 125 mile an hour top speed, so maybe they really are building this thing in serious performance. But again, like I'll believe it when I see it. It's easy to put that on the spec sheet at a
Right.
CES unveiling.
Yep. I mean, it looks cool. It's got like incredible performance. It's got everything. If they can actually build them and deliver on some of their promises, we know the space is full of, over promising and under delivering. So hopefully they can
Yeah,
get somewhere close to that. And
yeah,
it certainly looks cool. That front light almost reminds me of a Rivian light a little bit.
yeah, yeah. You're right. It's like they got one Meridian light. I mean, that's where they're saving costs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Why
careful. I
reinvent the
think
wheel?
I feel like Rivian may have that copyrighted or something. All right, moving on. Oh, this is the one I'm an expert at. The Cyrusher Ripple. Are electric snowboards going to be a thing? So this is exciting for me for a couple of reasons. One, I'm a huge snowboarding fan, and obviously I like the electrification of non-electrified things like bikes. But so it's also exciting because I just received mine last night. So I'm going to have an actual review. My son's a big snowboarder, and we're living in Vermont for the winter, so I'm gonna have lots of time to try this thing out. Let's play this video. There's not much out there about this thing. It kind of debuted at CES, and like the bigger, I mean, it's a cool idea that I've been thinking about for a long time. I was thinking about actually having uh, like wheel type things on the sides of the snowboard rather than cutting a hole in the snowboard and actually making a big wheel there. And so this is kind of a new idea for me, but and if you're watching, you can see how like there's a lot of questions to be answered. Like, what is that suspension for? Um, but I actually got it yesterday. I charged up the battery. I'm gonna actually try to take it out today. Um, the snow right now is pretty good for this, so if you don't see me again, this is why.
I'm
But
amazed you didn't just take it out immediately when the box opened.
So I did. I put it on the snow. I didn't actually get on it because we had to put bindings on.
Um,
And the board that I kind of used as a surrogate. No, what is it? A donor. Um, was in it. Long story. Anyway, it didn't get together till last night, but I actually did try it out on the in the like driveway, which is full of snow right now, and it like even in there, so there's three modes. There's like sport mode, normal mode, and like learning mode. Even in learning mode, it kind of just went shot right off. Top speed is 31 miles per hour, which to me
wow.
seems like certain death. um it's funny, the first page of the manual is basically just warnings like you're gonna die if you do anything wrong. If you don't follow every single rule here, you're gonna die.
And
So
even then, good luck.
yeah. So yeah, so basically it's a snowboard. I don't even know the exact price, but I know that they're gonna give Electrek readers a discount of I think 30%, so it'll be significant. There is one person, this is a Eastern European, maybe Russian guy who um, got a early model, and you can see how he takes off. Like, he's wearing jeans, so he's a Jerry, obviously, and the wheel looks different, but he kind of just moves out. Like if this is how it works, I think I'm down with it. Like I think this would be a cool thing to like kind of explore the forest and take my dog on a walk through the snow covered area around here in Vermont. So I'm into it. I'm excited about it, but the reality is I don't know if this is going to be like a real product. And I kind of feel like Cyrusher, that it's a company a Chinese company that makes a lot of e-bikes. I think this may be kind of a publicity item. Like I just don't think the market is for something like this is going to be huge. Don't know. Maybe they're finding out. But I don't know. What do you think? Would you jump on one of these?
I mean, I'll try anything once.
Okay.
I
All
would
right.
love to hop on one of these. I have so many questions though. So first of all, where's the battery?
So the battery is in a backpack, and there's a wire that comes out of your backpack down
Oh,
to the motor, and that doesn't reduce the weight as much as you would hope. So the thing is actually incredibly heavy, like, and it's obviously all the weight is in the back. So
yeah.
that's kind of a weird starting situation. Also,
Is
that
there
wheel
like,
looks kind of scary, but it's not. It's like a soft plastic. So when I
right.
first saw this thing, I was like, if my finger gets caught in there, it's like, is it over for me? And it's not like that. It's a little bit softer than you would think. Also, the wheel is like, I don't know, I want to say like 2 inches above, or it goes 2 inches below the board, and that suspension doesn't really do much, even though it looks like a big part of the rig. It's I tried putting my weight on the suspension, and actually the bend in the board does a lot more than the suspension does. So I don't know if they just pick this part up off of out of a parts bin that had this suspension. But it is super powerful. It so it's weird because Cyrusher is saying 3,300 here, but like on the Instagram page that was advertising to me, it was 21.99. But it is like this is a serious equipment. They have battery is like um, let's see, 12.6 amp hour battery. So this is something I'm wearing on my back, a 630 watt hour battery, which also has USB ports. So
Nice.
in case I lose my legs, I can power up my phone or something.
For your
Um,
heated
it,
coffee mug.
yes, yes. It's got a 156 centimeter deck size. So I typically I use a 160 right now, so pretty close to my normal size. But it's weird because the whole apparatus is like right behind my rear leg. So that's going to be I don't know what that's going to be like. And then so the weight is 33 pounds. Like a typical snowboard is a few maybe like 3 pounds. So you're talking about 10 times the normal weight, and that's all in the back. So that's weird. Um, and they say 15 to 20 kilometers or 12 miles of range, which is a weird metric to even think about with snowboarding because like I have a an app that kind of tracks my snowboarding, and say like, hey, you did 12 miles today, but I can't imagine actually being powered that long. So these are all like questions I can't wait to find the answers to.
So I just noticed that Mario in the comments said snowmobile snowboard, which makes me wonder, could you put like a chair or like a bleacher seat on it or something and
I
like
mean,
have the tiniest snowmobile?
you could. I mean, why not? And that's the other thing. Like, I don't know how you steer this thing because, you typically steer a snowboard by, leaning over and catching an edge. But this thing's super heavy. Like I just don't know. Like you kind of like part of catching an edge on a snowboard is like you're going a constant speed, and you do like you have this balance equation in your head. Like, all right, I'm going this fast. I need to lean this much, but like it's hard to tell how fast you're going, and like you're speeding up and slowing down so many times. So I have so many questions, and I'm actually like shaking with so much like excitement about answering all these things. But
Yeah.
hopefully it doesn't end badly for me.
So now that you mentioned the steering, that I do realize that that video of the one guy using it, he goes like arrow straight the entire
Yeah, the whole
short
time.
video clip.
I know, and it's very like so this guy here, he's just like, playing around with it for a second, and like, okay, am I gonna kill myself? And then, he's like, all right, bye to my kids and family. And then he's just like goes forward, and that looks good, but like how are you gonna like lean with all that weight at the bottom there? Like I don't know what that's gonna be like. I haven't seen anybody actually using it like what a snowboard would actually be like, how a snowboard would be used. So I am a
But
little bit like this guy here, like he's going straight, but like
is that the same board? It looks a little different,
I think it's the same. Uh, I don't know. I mean, these were
like a
all prototypes. I
mechanism.
mean,
Yeah.
honestly, the one they sent me with this battery, it feels very prototypey. Like you're
Oh
basically
yeah.
putting.
There's the,
Um, I got it turned on yesterday. That was pretty much it, and it scared the crap out of me. So today is going to be a really interesting day.
yeah. I cannot wait to hear how this
And,
goes.
and like
Oh
it's so
boy.
heavy that you have to carry it with the wheel like rolling on the bottom, and then like, all right, so turn. Where's the turns? Okay, he's
Oh,
turned a little there. He turned a little bit. Now he's on like grass. I don't know. Okay, he's turning there.
we're gonna need like
Yeah.
a special edition podcast tomorrow just to like hear what happened. We can't wait
Well,
2 weeks.
we'll talk about it next week for sure because I'm going to do a post on it. But yeah, that'll get people interested. Hopefully, people who are interested in this can hear about it, or maybe I'll be in the hospital and we won't talk about anything.
Oh no. Well, fingers crossed that we're talking about this next time.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's move over to the comments. We had some good ones at the beginning. If anybody has some comments or questions, throw it into Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn if you're listening live. First one is from Christopher Ray. Issues as a manufacturer is the legitimacy of the UL certifications on the market. We're paying close to $60,000 per model for the certification, while 99% of the scooters on Amazon, for example, all claim UL listing, but guaranteed or not. until there's a proper way to ensure all imports to the US are UL legitimate or not, we'll keep seeing these fires and bans, unfortunately. So what do you know about Amazon fake, like, does it cost the same to UL list a whole vehicle bike as it is a battery? Maybe that's
Yeah, but there's
something.
definitely different UL certifications. There's the one for the battery and one for the entire e-bike. In this case, Chris is talking about scooters, which I'm not sure if they even have their own separate UL certification figure. Chris, by the way, is the co-founder of Apollo Scooters.
Oh
Really
wow.
cool dude. I've met him before, and Apollo's. I mean, they know what they're doing. They're one of the few companies that like really builds their ground up scooters as opposed to just like taking parts out of the catalog. So like he definitely knows the industry, and I think what he's saying definitely holds water. That's one of the criticisms, by the way, of this whole UL thing is that like there's the UL like nonprofit part, and then there's the profit side of UL, which charges a lot of money to
So yeah,
certify
that seems
products.
kind of crazy. Like, why does it cost that much?
Yeah. Well, the other interesting thing is that so there are on the one side companies that are just like faking these or just buying like fake certificates, but there are also legitimate testing labs that test two UL certifications, but they are not UL's own like underwriter laboratories that
Oh, interesting.
does theirs. So like I ran into that issue with one of Electric's electric e-bikes models. I think it was their X Peak recently that they say it's UL certified, whatever. And then I put that in the post, and someone from UL reached out and was like, they're not on our list. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. So I went back to them, and they explained that, like, well, actually, we went to this like Swiss testing company, which they are like one of the top certification labs. And so they tested it and certified that it did meet the UL standards, but it wasn't UL themselves testing it. So you got that kind of like
Interesting.
gray area. Yeah, the
Yeah,
whole thing is
I kind of feel
interesting.
like the UL should kind of divorce themselves from the monetization part. Like maybe that's something the government should get involved with rather than
Yeah.
a private company.
Tell that to whoever's cashing the checks.
Right, right, right. All right. In regard to the bikes breaking fewer laws than the cars, we got a couple from Dan M. Eric Adams, who's the mayor of New York, should be there. New York City is the Wild West. It is the Wild West. We kind of know that, but and that's caused a lot of problems. The overall challenge is infrastructure. I live on Queens Boulevard in Queens, New York. New York City added barriers protecting the bike lane, and it basically became a double parking nightmare. Queens Boulevard has been named the Boulevard of Death, unfortunately. I wonder if it's a nightmare for cars because screw them. No, I wonder if it's the double parking nightmare is for bikes or cars though. Buildings are going on fire in New York City due to these e-bikes, a huge problem. We've discussed that kind of a lot. They're the UL listing. That the whole reason for the UL listing thing in New York was because of the fires. So those are all things to consider. Um, but yeah, the Queens Boulevard thing I'd have to look into. I don't know what if this is a car guy complaining about bikers or a biker complaining about cars or what. What's your read on that?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm guessing that the issue is that if cars can't park in the bike lane, then they park in the road, and then someone double parks them, and now you've got like one lane of traffic left, and the rest of the road is turned into a parking lot. To me, that sounds like what the issue is. But the things that I don't know about Queens could fill a book. So
All right, moving on. We have a stream of consciousness from Mario Madness. I say the only problem with some mopeds in other regions got to register. 17K. Ouch. That was for the um,
the Horwin
motor.
scooter.
Yeah. He owns a Suron, which is cheaper, but also not homologated likely, and saving a lot of cost on things that a lot of people value. I don't know how electric snowboard would work. Uh, like an off-road skateboard. That is a good point. I guess we have electric off-road skateboards and on-road skateboards. Having a snowboard is kind of like the evolution of that, I guess, right? Like,
Yeah, and to me, so this is another thing that I forgot to mention during that, but that to me, I see it similar to the way electric surfboards were introduced into the surfing world, is that they
mhm,
don't serve the same purpose. Like, you're not going out and like, surfing a pipeline on an electric surfboard. That's not the
right,
point. It's that it allows you to do the sport on water that you would never have been able to surf before, like a
right,
lake or a river or something like that. And
right.
so to me, that's what this ripple is doing. Is like it allows you to snowboard like up a hill or on perfectly flat land.
Yeah, I mean, we live right on the mountain here, so it's almost like kind of the worst spot to get this thing because I got to go find a flat place, and the only flat place are like roads, really. So, and which are plowed typically. So I've got to go look for a field somewhere to try this out in. Um, and unless it starts snowing today, so that'll be an interesting thing to try out. Also, another thing, so something I should have mentioned previously, it says that you can go up 20% grade hills.
Gee, that's
So
huge.
20% is huge, right?
Yeah,
And
you
I was
might snowball back down it if you're not careful.
what's kind of interesting is, do you remove the need for a chairlift at that point? Like, you
Oh,
just you just go right up the mountain like an electric bike would go up a dirt bike mountain as well. So
yeah, that's interesting.
something to consider. Yeah, you got to wax them. Regular snowboard is faster, going downhill for sure. Spiked wheels, that's what it's got. Sounds terrible by an ATV or a snowmobile. Well, that's what we kind of came up with, a snowmobile snowboard. Uh, and I think we're
Oh,
done
the
here.
fires, I think, was the third party chargers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, that
All
looks
right.
like everything to me. So thank you everyone for tuning in. As always, it's great having you, and we